It was 3 a.m. and I was fixing the heater in the middle of a blizzard. At 6 a.m., my wife threw a suitcase onto the porch with a note. "You're useless. Get out." She didn't know that the man she'd discarded would come back to take everything. And more. My name is Mark Hadley, 36 years old, living in a small town called Fairgrove, Missouri. I'm a mechanical engineer, working night shifts at a manufacturing plant about 20 minutes from home. We weren't rich, but I always tried to make sure my wife and daughter lived comfortably. "We" refers to me, my wife, Hannah, 38, and our daughter Maddie, who just turned 6. I married Hannah in 2015 when she was still a nurse at a private clinic. Later, she switched to an administrative role at a trucking company. She was smart, soft-spoken, and always knew how to charm people. At least, that was the Hannah I once knew. As for Maddie, she's the only reason I kept going after everything that happened. She has her mother's wavy brown hair, but my smile and eyes. Every time Maddie called me Daddy, all my exhaustion seemed to melt away. That's why, that night, I didn't hesitate when Hannah called. I got off work at 2:30 a.m. A blizzard was tearing through the roads. I'd just gotten into my truck when my phone rang. It was Hannah. She said the heater was broken and the house was freezing. Without a second thought, I knew I had to get home. I didn't want my wife and daughter shivering in Missouri's bone-chilling winter. I got home around 3 a.m., didn't take off my coat, didn't grab a drink, just went straight to the basement with my tools. The heater system was clogged. I had to dismantle the air duct and fix the sensor. I worked in the cold, sweat soaking my wool sweater, hands numb, but I pushed through to finish before dawn. When I was done, I checked the time. 4:52 a.m. I went upstairs and saw Hannah sitting on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, staring at me like I was a stranger. I gave a tired smile and said the heater was working again. She just nodded. No thanks, no questions. I figured she was exhausted, so I mumbled, I'm gonna rest a bit," and dragged myself to the bedroom. Still in my work clothes, I collapsed onto the bed. My back ached, my hands were scratched and bloody, and my eyes could barely stay open. I just wanted to nap before making coffee and getting ready for the morning with my daughter. But when I woke up, blinding light hit my face. The clock read 6:12 a.m. I rubbed my eyes, my body screaming with pain. Then I saw it, a suitcase, not in the bedroom but in the hallway, right outside the door. On top was a scribbled note. "You're useless, get out." I didn't understand. My eyes darted to the living room. Hannah stood there, arms crossed, her face cold as ice. Without a word, she pointed to the front door. "I'm tired of carrying you. You're a burden. Leave now." I thought I was dreaming. I stammered, "Hannah, what's going on? What the hell are you talking about?" At that moment, Maddie's bedroom door creaked open. She stepped out, clutching her teddy bear, still in pajamas. She looked at me, then at her mom. For some reason, Hannah spun around and shouted, "Maddie, go back to your room, now!" I wanted to say something, to hug my daughter, to ask if someone had knocked me out while I slept. But Hannah stepped closer, threw my truck keys at my chest and hissed, "There's your truck. Go. Don't ever come back." I don't remember how I left that house. All I recall is the freezing air, the wind howling through snow-covered porches. I stood outside, suitcase in hand, the note, "You're useless," fluttering in the wind. The door slammed shut behind me, and then, the sound of the lock clicking. She'd planned it all. She wanted me gone. I didn't know what hurt more. The cold seeping through my damp coat, Maddie's eyes as she watched me get kicked out, or the betrayal from the woman I loved, delivered so cruelly. But I wouldn't stay down forever. Soon, Hannah would learn that the man she threw out like trash was the nightmare she could never escape. I sat in my truck all morning, unsure if I was shaking from the cold or shock, still in my blood-stained work clothes from fixing the heater. My mind raced with questions. Why? When did it start? How long had she planned this? Did Maddie know? I drove aimlessly around Fairgrove, a small town where everyone knows everyone, but at that moment I had nowhere to go. All I had in my wallet was $24, 0 cents, and a debit card tied to a joint account I wasn't sure had been drained yet. I parked behind an old grocery store near the church, where there was free Wi-Fi and shelter from the wind. I sat in the truck, trying to piece together the clues I'd missed. A few weeks earlier, I'd seen a strange coffee cup in the kitchen, one I'd never drink from, a whiff of unfamiliar perfume on the sheets, messages Hannah quickly deleted when I walked into the room. Back then, I told myself I was overthinking. Now I knew. She'd been planning this for a long time, and I was the last fool to see it. I showered at the gym, brushed my teeth in a supermarket bathroom. During the day, I found warm places to work on my laptop. Thankfully, my freelance work didn't require an office. At night, I slept in the truck, wrapped in my coat, my back aching because the seat wasn't long enough to stretch out. On the third night, I drove past the house my parents gave me when I married Hannah. The lights were blazing, a strange car was parked out front. I recognized the black Ford Explorer, the one I'd seen picking up Hannah for months. Music drifted from the windows, along with the clink of glasses and laughter. They were throwing a party in my house. I froze. I didn't tell anyone. I was humiliated, even with Jake, my closest co-worker, who I'd worked with for 5 years. I just forced a smile when he said, "You look rough lately." But I wrote down the Ford's license plate. I noted every detail. That night, lying in the truck, watching my breath fog the windows, I realized this wasn't a stumble. It was an organized betrayal. And I couldn't be the victim forever. I sat up, opened my phone, and checked the bank app. Joint account, $2.37. Credit cards, maxed out, both of them. The last transaction was for furniture from a high-end store in the next city. I didn't need to guess what it was for. I had nothing left. No home, no money, no daughter, no friends. But I had the truth. And the truth is worth more than anything, if you know how to use it. I texted Jake one line, "Know any good divorce lawyers?" 3 minutes later, he sent a number. "Call Mike Larison. Tough as nails. Doesn't talk much. But no one plays the law better in Fairgrove." I saved the number, but I didn't call yet. I needed to be sure. I needed proof. I needed to know who was really trying to bury me, and who would pay. The next day, I called Mike Larison. He wasn't the TV lawyer type. No shiny suit, no red tie. He met me in a small office behind an old barber shop, holding a plastic coffee cup, glasses slipping down his nose. I told him everything. Every detail, from the 3 a.m. heater fix to the suitcase on the porch. From the party in my house to the drained bank account. Mike listened, nodded once, and asked one question. "Who's the house titled to?" I froze. Years ago, after my parents passed, they left me that house. Hannah and I moved in because it was paid off and big enough for a family of 3. Back then, I thought simply, we're married, what's there to divide? We never transferred the deed to both our names. It was still mine alone. Mike looked up, squinting like he'd just seen a door swing wide open. "Mark, if that house is your inherited property, titled solely to you before she decided to kick you out, I'll be blunt, she has no claim to it." I sat still. A spark of hope flickered in my chest, but I held it back, because I knew Hannah wasn't stupid. She didn't just want to leave me. She wanted to erase me from her life, from the law, from my daughter's memory. Mike continued, "Need bank statements from the joint account, proof of unreasonable spending, photos, texts, transactions, anything helps, and especially if there's evidence she deceived you financially, like withdrawing investments without notice, or using your name as collateral, we can countersue." I nodded. I still had bank emails. I had photos of credit card receipts, the card she used to buy an $1,800 0-cent sofa. I had texts from Maddie. sent from her iPad. Uncle Sam came over again. They locked the door and I wasn't allowed in. Uncle Sam, Anna's boss, the guy who drove the Ford Explorer, parked outside my house, the one who always needed her for weekend work trips when I was pulling overtime. When I left Mike's office, he said, "Don't call her, don't warn her, don't post online, stay quiet and let me work. In the meantime, start rebuilding your life, and stay silent like a sniper." That night, I returned to my old truck, parked in the empty lot near the gas station at the edge of town. It was freezing, but something inside me started to warm. Not hope, but anger turning into resolve. I started keeping a journal. Every transaction, every lawyer call, every detail. I opened a new bank account, set up a private email, used my social security number to check for loans or shady transactions in my name. And then I found something that made my blood run cold. Hannah had taken out a $20,000 0-cents personal loan, using my house as collateral. The loan was approved 3 weeks before she kicked me out. I never signed a single document. She forged my signature, faked financial records, and used the money to buy new furniture, gift her boss's son a new car, and, as her Facebook post bragged, start a new life. I printed everything, sent it to Mike. He texted back, one line. "Perfect. Now let them think they've won, because what's coming isn't an apology. It's the law." Every night after work, I parked in the same spot, the empty lot near the town's gas station. I rigged a makeshift windshield cover with newspapers, opened my laptop, and did 3 things. Downloaded new bank statements, logged every move Hannah made, and saved screenshots from her social media. They were living carefree like nothing had happened. My house had become a party pad for people who never worked a day for it. I saw Hannah's photo with Sam, her boss, posing by a new dining table, captioned, "Finally turned my cocoon into a castle." I saw Craig, Sam's son from his ex-wife, showing off a new SUV with the hashtag, "Thank you, Bonus." I saw the kitchen I'd tiled myself, now repainted in modern tones. Not a word about me. Not a mention of Maddie, my daughter. Just fake boasts and polished lies. But I didn't react. No comments, no accusations. I quietly screenshot and added to my revenge file. Mike Larison kept his word. In 3 weeks, he and his assistant gathered bank records, signature verification orders, the loan documents using my house as collateral, proof of lavish spending, and even a neighbor's video of Sam coming and going from my house every Monday morning. He said, "We're not just suing for property theft and forged documents. We can also charge credit abuse and intentional actions to render a spouse homeless." I didn't know all the legal jargon, but I understood one thing. I wasn't the victim anymore. I was the plaintiff. The 4th week after I was kicked out, Mike sent a simple text. "Paperwork's done. We're filing Monday morning. Then we'll have the sheriff serve it directly at the residence, your house." I didn't reply, just nodded to myself. That Sunday night, I couldn't sleep. I didn't know if it was nerves, excitement, or heartbreak. Probably all 3. At 6 a.m. Monday, I put on my old gray dress shirt, the only one still intact, and drove to the neighborhood I used to call home. At 8:27 a.m. I parked 3 houses down. Mike was already waiting in his car. At 8:59, a sheriff's car pulled up to the house. I held my breath. Through the window I saw Craig, Sam's son, open the door. He was in sweatpants, holding a glass of milk, still half asleep. Then Hannah appeared, hair in a messy bun wrapped in a shawl, taking the stack of papers from the sheriff. I stepped out of the truck just as she reached page 2. She looked up and saw me. That moment I'll never forget. Her smug expression vanished. Her eyes widened. Her hands shook. Her lips moved, but no words came out. I stood there, hands in my coat pockets, staring into the eyes of the woman who'd declared, "You're useless. Get out." The sheriff explained briefly. "This house isn't in your name. The court has approved a temporary order. You and your cohabitants have 48 hours to vacate. Any property damage will be prosecuted. Craig stepped forward, yelling, "You can't do this. This is my house." Mike stepped up, pulling the original deed, bank confirmation, and forged loan documents from his briefcase. Craig shut up. Hannah threw the papers on the ground. She started crying, then screaming, then begging. "Mark, please." "You can't do this," I replied, calmer than ever. "Not. The law is—" I turned and walked back to my truck. For the first time in a month of living in that truck, my chest felt lighter. Not because I'd won, but because I wasn't the one left behind anymore. I returned to the house at 9 a.m. Wednesday, 48 hours after the sheriff served the papers. Mike came with me, a legal shield in case things got messy. But when we arrived, it was eerily quiet. Sam's black SUV was gone. No music, no strange cars parked on the curb. Out front, a small U-Haul truck was pulling away, with Hannah behind it, eyes swollen, hair disheveled, clutching a cardboard box. She stood on the porch, staring at me, not with hatred or pleading, but with a hollow look, like she couldn't believe it was really over. I didn't stop, didn't talk. I walked past her, holding the keys, the same ones she'd thrown at me when she kicked me out, and unlocked the door. The hinge creaked, as if the house knew its true owner was back. And I froze. My house was a gutted shell. Everything familiar was gone. The living room was empty. The walls were half-painted gray, half-marked with holes from the photo frames Maddie and I hung for Christmas. The sofa was gone. The TV was missing. The rug my mom hand-wove was torn and shoved into a corner. The kitchen was worse. The cabinets were ripped out, the sink cracked, the countertop scratched like someone had taken a knife to it. In the master bedroom, only a bare box spring remained. The sheets reeked of cheap perfume. This wasn't a move-out, it was retaliation. Mike photographed every detail, noting every piece of damage. "We can sue for compensation. If she did this intentionally, it'll cost her." I nodded, but I didn't care about the money. I went to Maddie's room, the only room left untouched. Pink walls, hand-drawn pictures taped by the window, her teddy bear sat neatly on the pillow, the star-shaped nightlight I'd installed still glowed when I flicked the switch. I sat on the floor, and for the first time in nearly a month, I breathed. Not gasping, not shivering in a cold truck, just breathing. Like a man who still had a place in the world. That afternoon, I called Jake. He didn't ask much, just said, "I'm coming over," bringing beer and a toolbox. 3 hours later, we started from scratch, scraped off the old paint, cleaned the floors, made a list of things to replace. Other guys from the plant stopped by, some with paint cans, some with pizza, one with an industrial vacuum. They didn't ask why I'd been kicked out. They just knew I deserved to come back. That night I slept on the floor, in a sleeping bag, my coat as a pillow. But I slept better than any night before. No humming truck heater, no frosted windows. Just a roof, 4 walls, and the quiet space I once called home. Now, finally, back with its rightful owner. 3 days after I moved back, while I was scrubbing scratches off the hardwood with an old brush, there was a knock at the door. Soft. Hesitant, like someone unsure they should be there. I opened it still holding a rag, sweat on my forehead. It was Alexis, Hannah's sister. I froze. I hadn't seen Alexis since last Thanksgiving. She was always quiet, reserved, and usually with her husband, Troy, a cold guy who controlled her every word. Today, Alexis was alone. Her face was pale, her hands clasped tightly. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. "Mark? I'm sorry. I know I have no right to be here, but I need to talk. Not for Hannah, for me." I nodded silently and let her in. Alexis sat on the only chair left, a wooden one in the dining room. She looked around the house, her eyes tinged with sadness. You don't know, Hannah planned this for over 6 months. She used to say why settle for a wage earner when she could start over with someone more powerful. I stayed quiet. The words still stung, but I needed to hear them. He didn't just betray you, Mark. She turned our family into unwilling spectators. We knew. I overheard everything at family gatherings, but I was scared of Troy. I didn't dare speak up. I looked up. And now, after she lost the house, the car, what? Alexis gave a sad smile, almost choking. You're living in my basement. But Troy hates it. He's making Hannah hand over her remaining savings to pay for their stay. She has no car, no friends, no job. I exhaled slowly. Not happy, not angry. Just seeing the truth. You reap what you sow. But then Alexis looked me in the eye. I'm not here to plead for her. I'm here to ask for your help. I frowned. Help? She nodded, tears welling up. Troy doesn't just control Hannah. He controls me. I have wanted to leave for so long, but I had no one to turn to. I was scared he'd find out. But today, seeing you, standing up, not with violence, but with intelligence and the law, I knew I had to do the same. We sat in silence for a moment. I didn't know what to say, but then I remembered. Family gatherings, Alexis always in the background, behind Troy. She never held eye contact for more than 3 seconds, never finished her plate, and no one ever asked why. I can't give you everything, but I can help you start over. I pulled out my phone and called Becky, a friend of my late mom who runs a women's shelter in the next town. An hour later, Alexis had an appointment with a counselor. 2 hours later, she was taken to a safe place. I helped her load essentials from her car. Before she left, Alexis grabbed my hand, looking at me longer than ever. Thank you. You didn't just save me, you gave me hope. That night, I sat on the back porch, looking at Fair Groves. I'd thought I lost everything, but now I realized, when you hold on to your integrity, sometimes you don't just reclaim your life, you help others find theirs. I thought it was over. I stopped thinking of Hannah every morning. I stopped picturing this house filled with her complaints about money or comparisons to more successful men. I thought I was done with the past. But then, on a Saturday night, near midnight, my phone lit up. A text from an unknown number, but I knew who it was. Hannah, Mark, I know I don't deserve this, but please, just read to the end. I sat on the back porch. It was dark, a cool breeze rustling the trees. I held the phone, reading each line. Was long, very long. First excuses, then apologies, finally begging. I was wrong. I was stupid. Sam dumped me the moment he found out I lost the house. I have nothing. Craig's friends turned on him. My mom won't let me come home. I can't find a job. I can't face Maddie. I'm not asking to come back. I just want to talk. Once. Meet somewhere, say everything. I need closure. Please. I sat there for a long time, reading and rereading. For a moment, I saw my old self, the man fixing a heater in a blizzard only to be thrown out. I saw Maddie, the girl who drew a family of 3 with a red heart. Then I saw myself now, the man who walked out of pain, rebuilding step by step, not with hatred, but with strength. I typed one line, sent it. AL communication goes through my lawyer. Address is in the file. I wish you well in finding yourself. Then I blocked the number, not out of spite, but because I knew if I let myself soften again, I'd fall back into the pit that dragged me down. The next day, I visited Maddie. She hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. I didn't tell her about her mom. I just said, I'm doing everything I can to give you a home, and I'll never give up again. That night, I slept in a room with half-painted walls, but I smiled in my sleep. Because finally, I wasn't the victim of an old story. I was the one writing the next chapter. One Friday afternoon, after work, I stopped by the old coffee shop near downtown. the place I used to read every weekend before my life fell apart. The shop was the same. Rough brick walls, worn wooden chairs, the smell of fresh roasted coffee mixed with warm cinnamon rolls. I planned to grab a to-go cup, but as I reached the counter, a voice stopped me. "Mark Hadley, is that really you?" I turned. There she was, hair tied high, holding a leather notebook, eyes wide with surprise, but warm, like no time had passed. Elena, my college best friend. The what could have been if I hadn't chosen a different path. She'd left Fairgrove years ago to chase her dream of opening a bookstore in another state. We'd almost dated, then quietly went separate ways when I met Hannah. "You've lost weight," she said, after a few seconds of silence. "And you?" "Still see through people with one sentence," I replied, smiling faintly. We sat by the window. The air was awkward at first, but it warmed quickly. I told her my story, no hiding. She listened intently, no judgment, no interruptions. "I heard rumors about it, but I never thought it was you." I didn't think I'd become it either. We both laughed. For the first time in months, I laughed for real. Elena shared that she'd returned to Fairgrove to open a second branch of her small bookstore. She invited me to help set up the shelves, remembering how I used to help her organize psychology books in college. I need someone who doesn't just stack books, but understands stories of survival. I didn't answer right away, but inside I knew, when one door closes, sometimes a new path quietly opens. A few days later, I visited the bookstore, not to work, but to sit in a reading corner like I used to. Elena made me a mocha and placed a note beside it. Time doesn't erase the past, but it helps us look back without trembling hands. She'd written it, not for me, but for everyone who's walked through a storm. And I realized I wasn't waiting for forgiveness from the past. I was starting a new chapter. One chilly Wednesday evening, Maddie came over for her usual weekend visit. I'd just finished fixing her bedroom, setting up a small bookshelf, and hanging a photo of the three of us from when she was in preschool. Maddie's 8 now. She doesn't talk much, but her eyes miss nothing. She knows I'm tired, even if I never complain. Knows her mom is gone, even if no one taught her to notice an adult's unusual silence. That night, as I grilled cheese sandwiches in the kitchen, Maddie leaned against the doorway, staring at the plate in my hand. Then she spoke, softly, like a breeze, but enough to stop me cold. "Daddy, why doesn't Mommy live with us anymore?" My hand froze mid-air. No parenting book prepared me for that question. No lawyer coached me for this moment. No amount of time could ready me when my own heart was still healing. I sat down, looked into my daughter's brown eyes, so much like her mother's. You know, sometimes grown-ups don't split up because they stop loving each other, but because they don't know how to stay together anymore. And I think that's what happened with me and your mom. Maddie nodded, silent for a few seconds. I thought she'd run off or change the subject, but then she asked, "Does Mommy still love me?" My heart clenched. I pulled Maddie close, hugging her tightly. "Your mom will always love you. Even if she was wrong to me, that doesn't mean she doesn't care about you, understand?" Maddie nodded, tears brimming in her eyes. That night, I sat by her bed for hours, telling her stories of how I learned my trade, how I fixed air conditioners and heaters, how I met her mom. I told the truth, but didn't vilify anyone. I didn't need Maddie to hate her mother. I just needed her to see I wasn't giving up. After Maddie fell asleep, I sat alone in the living room, the soft yellow light illuminating the wall, still marked with holes from Hannah's old shelf. I thought of Elena, how she listened without judgment, the warm coffee she quietly set beside me yesterday morning. And I thought, if one day Maddie asks, "Do you still believe in love?" I'd say, yes, because I lost everything, and still found someone who believed I was worth starting over. I started planning Maddie's 9th birthday 2 weeks in advance. No big cake, no lavish decorations, just simple streamers, hand-pumped balloons, and a chocolate cake I made myself from a YouTube recipe. But this time, I wanted it to be real. No mom takes photos dad cleans up like past years. No bickering behind Maddie's back about how much the party cost. No fake smiles for the neighbors. This time, just pure love. From me, from real friends, and from people who stood by me when I had nothing. Jake came early, bringing a foldable wooden dining set borrowed from the shop. Wyatt, the coworker who let me crash on his couch, brought a camera and some of his son's old toys wrapped like new. And then Elena arrived. She wore a light blue dress, hair tied high, holding a ribbon-wrapped vintage book. For Maddie, this book helped me through tough times. I think she deserves a world where the heroes are as strong as she is. Maddie walked into the living room at 3 p.m. She froze when everyone sang happy birthday in unison. Her eyes welled up, then she ran to hug me so tight I could hardly breathe. I didn't think you could do this. I knelt down, looking into my daughter's eyes. I lost everything once, Maddie, but you gave me a reason to build it all back. The party was simple. Puzzles, cake, bursts of laughter. No fancy guests, just genuine people. I watched Elena stand by Maddie helping her open gifts. She didn't try to be a mom, nor did she hold back like a stranger. She was just right. And I realized, new love doesn't arrive like thunder. It comes like a cool breeze after a long winter. Quiet, gentle, and strong enough to push my sails forward again. After the party, when most guests had left, I walked Elena to the porch. The afternoon sun filtered through the backyard trees, casting orange light on the old brick I planned to repave next summer. "Thank you," I said, "for coming." "Not for you," she replied, smiling softly. "For Maddie, and because a part of me believes your story isn't finished." That night, as Maddie slept soundly in her new bed, clutching Elena's book, I looked around the house, still a work in progress but full of warmth. I didn't need Hannah's apology. I didn't need Craig to pay. I didn't need this town to understand what happened. I just needed this. Every morning I wake up knowing I'm not living in the past. I'm living for Maddie, for myself, and for those who dare to believe, even after heartbreak, that a battered heart can still beat, stronger and truer than ever.